first big topic. Let's look bigger picture here. We've got some time now as we prepare for the new season. I want to focus on which players to keep an eye on this season. I'm thinking which Premier League players are under the radar, maybe set for a breakout, maybe sort of a comeback season for them, because there's a lot of players coming in, sophomore surge, if you want to call it that. A lot of players who maybe came in last summer that really didn't get going in the Premier League at the new clubs. But Nick, who have you got your eye on? Because I know, be careful with this, because Premier League fantasy players out there will be listening intently and will take this as gospel. Whoever you say now is going to be in their fantasy lineup in week 1.
Yeah, I may stop short of gospel, but whatever that level is, you can take this, because I am a believer in the 2 biggest transfers maybe of last summer, not counting Ronaldo, really paying off. And that's Sancho for Manchester United and Grealish for Manchester City. I believe that Grealish's first season would have been a bit of a hit, because let's not forget Pep Guardiola, when he bought Grealish, who did he think he was also getting? Harry Kane. Instead, he gets Harry Kane with, like, I don't know what you want to call it, mutant juice flowing through his bones. Erling Haaland feasting on that service with your Silvas and your Fodens. I'm just super excited. I think Grealish and Sancho Grealish had a better season last year than we gave him credit for, because we were expecting so much. Sancho, it looks like, and again, these are just friendlies, it's very early, but even before he started succeeding, a second season back in England with a real coach, pretty exciting.
Andy, you agree with that? Any other players you want to highlight?
Yeah, Grealish is really the one for me, because I think it was our fault, not us specifically, but the greater our fault for having such immediate expectations for Grealish going to City. We should have known it was going to take time to learn the system and just acclimate himself to Pep's ways. And he said it, Pep said it leading up to the season, and everybody just seemed to ignore it. And it didn't make a ton of sense. Nick's right. He did have a better season than maybe some of the numbers say. But I think the key point is going to be, with Erling Haaland coming in, they're going to have to change the way that they play a little bit, because they're not going to have as much possession up top from the center forward position. It's going to be about getting the ball to him. And so I almost wonder if there's going to be some sort of, maybe not formational change, but philosophical at least, to where Jack Grealish is allowed to play a little bit more in the middle, maybe, where he really, really thrived in a free role for Aston Villa, which obviously resulted in the $140 million transfer to Manchester City. And so, not having the center forward last season, we thought it was going to maybe hold them back from winning the title. They managed to just barely do it. Now they've got a center forward, and we can begin to see Pep evolve this team. And I do think Jack Grealish will be at the center of that, because you look at the money spent on him, you look at the age that he's at, the profile that he has. He is a player that I think, moving on from Kevin De Bruyne over the next 18 to 24 months, probably, I know it's hard to imagine doing, but they're going to have kind of the successor, or maybe the bridge to the long-term successor. And I think Grealish can be one of those players.
Wow, high praise there for Jack Grealish. As an Englishman, I'm very happy with that. And I'm very happy that Nick mentioned Jadon Sancho as well, because that means they'll be in good form heading towards the World Cup. But focusing on Man United, Nick, you mentioned there, Sancho's looked really good in pre-season, and these little snippets we've seen of them playing out in Asia and Australia. Diogo Dalot is low-key been probably their best player in the tour. He's been sensational down the right, whipping in great crosses. He's totally overtaken Aaron Wan-Bissaka as United's starting right back. And talk about a guy who's got a second chance there. Under Erik ten Hag, quite a technical player, likes to cut inside. He's been working really well with Bruno Fernandes down that one flank. I'd love to see Sancho do well as well. I'm going to chuck another name in there. Not a sophomore surge by any stretch of the imagination, but a comeback player, Anthony Martial. He scored 3 goals already in Man United's pre-season. I personally think that they look a lot better without Ronaldo up top, as we've been saying time and time again. You can see it again. It's pre-season. Everyone in the comments, calm down. But that fluid kind of front four there of Sancho out wide, Rashford out wide, Martial up top, and then Bruno just dictating the tempo. And we haven't even mentioned Christian Eriksen as well coming at United. But there's a few players there at United that needed a clean slate and needed a fresh start. And they certainly have that. We haven't even mentioned Donny van de Beek or Harry Maguire or some of the other players there at United. But I think they're going to be a lot better, and just there's going to be a lot more positive atmosphere around that team this season. Looking elsewhere, Kai Havertz, I think similar to Martial, maybe given an opportunity, it seems like he's going to be the main man up top to win that number 9 spot. Lukaku's leaving. Ronaldo doesn't seem like he's going to go to Chelsea. It doesn't seem like Chelsea are going to buy another striker. They're going to rely on Werner, Pulisic, Sterling, and others to kind of be the guys underneath a focal point. But I think that suits Havertz better. He can kind of just link up play, drop a bit deeper. And I think they've got players now that will definitely go beyond him. And he's got that license to sit back deeper. And I'm going to throw a couple other players out there. Mark Cucurella from Brighton, if he does end up going to Man City, watch out for him. I think he's got the potential to be sensational. I know you love the Seagulls, Nick. And Martin Odegaard. I mean, the end of last, there it is. There's the Seagulls. Martin Odegaard for Arsenal, I think he come on leaps and bounds at Arsenal. Still so young, we forget about how young he is. And in that team, I think he's going to have more and more responsibility. So, guys, looking at some of the new signings coming into the Premier League or moving clubs, Nick, anybody else that you really expect to have a breakout season, if you will? Because looking at Gabby Jesus, Jed Spence going to Tottenham, maybe Fabio Carvalho going to Liverpool. Anybody of those players or anybody else that you think is going to really make big strides forward this season in the Premier League?
Spence is interesting. I don't want to fall into the I don't want to say shades of Ryan Sessegnon, but I just don't want to put too many expectations on him because of where he was playing last season. And yes, he was outstanding. And of course, we've seen players make that jump before, but I think he's going to be fantastic. I also don't want to say he's going to be fantastic on week one. I know this is a little bit goofy and a little bit homery, but I do like the Boatman signing for Newcastle. Sven Boatman at center back, because all of the moves they've made in the past few years have been to shore up kind of everywhere else in the past few years, I should say. And to have someone back there to be Jamal Lascelles on steroids, because he's kind of fallen off a cliff since he became Newcastle's captain. And to have that sturdy center back behind Bruno Guimaraes with Callum Wilson and St. Max up top. And obviously they've done some business at goalkeeper as well. I really do like that. And I'll be interested to follow them, Wolves, and we'll talk about this a lot over the next few weeks. There are some teams that I think under the radar, real sink or swim candidates.
Andy, do you agree with that? And what do you think about some other players that we haven't mentioned yet set to have breakout seasons?
Finally, an opportunity to talk about Tottenham. Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate it. Spurs are doing great business alongside Arsenal, alongside United, as has already kind of been mentioned this week. But I think, whatever the fee for Richarlison, however you feel about that, I think you look at the way that he'll be used by Antonio Conte as a backup to Harry Kane in certain situations, as a backup to Son in certain situations, as a backup to Kulusevski in certain situations, and also just as a late game sub to either cause chaos at one end of the field or really try and close the game out defensively from that center forward position. I just think he's an incredible chess piece that Conte now has at his disposal, and he's the perfect manager to have a player like that. I think he's also an extension alongside Christian Romero, who those two have a little bit of previous with one another, are an extension of Conte on the field as well. The mentality and just the intensity that they're going to bring every single day. I think between those two and between the manager, the days of Tottenham being called soft or wilting under pressure, I think those are going to be gone. It's just the personalities that they have in there as well. You get a player with Premier League experience who's been through a lot of adversity. He had 2 different managers in his one season at Watford. He had 4 different managers at Everton in 4 seasons there. He has had 0 stability, and yet multiple clubs were interested at around $50 million this summer. I think that says a lot about him. Speaking of shopping in the Premier League, Yves Bissouma, a fan favorite around here, went from his time at Brighton the last few years. Another really good deal, a player that will fit in, will serve a role. It's not so much about signing a star for Spurs this summer. And so while on paper, they might be a little underwhelming in terms of the name or the stats or the production or what have you, the stars are in place. It's now about building a full squad around those players, giving Conte what he needs to get through the long haul of a 38-game league season, the Champions League, the Cups, and everything. We know it's a World Cup year. And also, Ivan Perisic might be a really, really sneaky, under-the-radar, just genius-looking signing. A lot of people don't know how good he was at his peak because he never played in the Premier League. He never got to one of those top clubs in the world. And now kind of a left wing back, Conte knows how to use him. He had him at Inter. He won Serie A with him. So I just think that whatever the workflow at Spurs, if it's Conte saying, get me this player or a player like this, and Fabio Paratici goes out and he just does it.
Look at the, it's not quite a sophomore surge, but go across North London and look at what Arsenal's done. They have a lot of young players. We've been talking about their young players for 2 seasons, so it's not a sophomore thing. But if they are adjusting, if Smith Rowe takes another step, if Saka, which is remarkable to think about, takes another step, Gabby Jesus now being in a position where he's the man. And I really like the idea. We'll see if it comes to fruition of the Zinchenko signing, because you have someone who can come in and you can tell him you're going to play your preferred position in midfield, which, by the way, the pieces around him of Partey, of Xhaka, of these other players that they'll get, now take all of that and say, oh, we're going to use you at left back, which we already know he can play at a Premier League winning level. So, man, the North London derbies are going to be phenomenal this year.
They are. And Nick, I love how quickly Andy has jumped on board the Tottenham bandwagon with us. He was a little bit unsure a few weeks ago, but now I'm pretty sure he thinks they're going to win the title, right, Andy?
Not quite. I think they're going to have a very good season, maybe a special season. Title that's a big gap to those two at the top, but massive progress forward for sure.
And not quite from Andy is a hell yes from anyone else. So we should probably
careful sitting on that fence, Andy. That is, yeah, it's going to be a good season for Tottenham, I think, with the summer business they have already done.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.